In the first year of the new millennium, the United States Mint continued striking Lincoln cents at an astounding pace. Billions of pennies were produced that year between Philadelphia and Denver, each bearing the familiar copper-plated zinc composition adopted since 1982. The obverse still featured Abraham Lincoln's solemn profile, while the reverse showed the stately Lincoln Memorial, unchanged for decades. Production techniques by then were highly automated and exacting, designed to eliminate mistakes that had plagued earlier years of minting. Quality control had advanced significantly, but with so many coins struck daily, even the smallest lapse could escape unnoticed. And in 2001, amid the millions of flawless coins, a tiny, almost imperceptible flaw slipped into circulation. It began with the dies themselves. Mint workers knew dies could deteriorate under the immense pressure of striking hundreds of thousands of blanks. In Philadelphia that year, one of the working dies developed a subtle misalignment, likely from an improper setup or loosening bolts, causing a faint but detectable doubling effect on some of the lettering and date. The misalignment was slight enough to evade the inspector's eyes, but distinct enough to leave its mark. The flawed die continued in service, striking thousands of pennies with a quiet imperfection. Years later, those flawed coins remained scattered across the country, unnoticed by the millions of people who spent them every day. It wasn't until an unassuming collector in upstate New York named Daniel Whitman stumbled on one that anyone gave the 2001 penny a second thought. Daniel had been combing through rolls of pennies from his local bank for years. He wasn't after wealth. He was after history, little pieces of America's story hiding in plain sight that on a chilly evening in November, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with a box of freshly wrapped rolls. Under the bright beam of his desk lamp, he carefully unwrapped roll after roll, checking each penny for key dates or anomalies. His hands worked methodically until one coin made him pause. At first glance, it was an ordinary 2001 Philadelphia penny, nothing remarkable. But something about it caught his eye. He leaned closer, tilting it under the light. The date seemed doubled. He squinted, then reached for his jeweler's loupe. Sure enough, the numerals in 2001 each carried a faint shadow below and to the right. He studied the rest of the coin and noted additional doubling along the word liberty and even faint traces on the "In God We Trust." His heart beat faster. This was no post-mint damage. This was on the die itself, stamped into every coin it struck. Daniel set the coin aside and finished his box, finding no others like it. Over the next week, he searched hundreds more pennies from various banks, managing to locate just 3 more with similar doubling. His excitement grew with each find, but he also felt a growing sense of mystery. How rare was this error? Why hadn't he heard of it before? He decided to send his best specimen to a professional grading service for authentication. Weeks passed before the package returned. The graders confirmed it, a genuine double die obverse, verified and encapsulated. The notation alone sent a thrill down his spine. Yet when he checked auction records, he found little mention of a 2001 double die. This seemed to be largely undocumented, a modern oddity that most collectors hadn't even noticed. First, the market reacted cautiously. Early offers for his graded coin were modest, $40, then $70. He declined. Something in his gut told him this was only the beginning. As word of his discovery spread through collector forums and hobby publications, demand began to grow. Over the next year, a handful more examples surfaced, some selling privately for several $100s. By the third year, high-grade specimens were occasionally fetching over $1,000 at auction, especially those in pristine, uncirculated condition. The value didn't climb steadily. There were peaks and valleys, as collectors debated its rarity and importance. Yet through all the fluctuations, it became clear that the 2001 double die had earned a place in the pantheon of modern errors. It wasn't as dramatic as the famous 1955 double die, but its subtlety and scarcity in high grades gave it a certain allure. For Daniel, it was immensely satisfying to see his quiet discovery blossom into a sought-after collectible. What intrigued collectors most was the understated nature of the error. The doubling was faint but deliberate, requiring patience and a sharp eye to discern. Unlike more obvious mistakes, broad strikes, off-center strikes, or clip planchets, this error rewarded those who looked closely. It became something of a litmus test among hobbyists. Could you spot the doubling without being told where to look? Daniel kept searching rolls in the years that followed, hoping to find more. And one evening, he uncovered something he hadn't expected. Among another box of pennies, he found a 2001 double die with an additional feature, a thin, jagged die crack running through Lincoln's shoulder and down to the rim. It was faint but unmistakable, creating an entirely new variety. He sent it in for grading, and when it came back, the graders confirmed what he suspected. Not only was it a double die, but also an early die state with an additional crack, making it even more distinctive. This was a variety on top of a variety, a kind of double rarity that added a twist to the story. Collectors who already coveted the double die were now eager to track down this secondary, cracked die variant, driving up prices even further. In the years since, the 2001 double die penny has continued to grow in stature among collectors. It remains relatively unknown to the general public, quietly traded among those in the know. Its market value still ebbs and flows with demand, but high-grade examples regularly command impressive premiums compared to face value. Daniel has kept a few of his original finds, not for profit, but as a personal reminder of the night he noticed something everyone else overlooked. For him, the true reward was never the money. It was the quiet thrill of bringing to light a piece of minting history that might otherwise have stayed hidden. Each time he held one of those coins between his fingers, he felt connected to something larger, a story of imperfection, discovery, and the enduring appeal of a humble penny carrying just a hint of mystery in its copper sheen. In 1997, the Denver Mint continued its steady rhythm of producing billions of pennies, each stamped with the familiar visage of Abraham Lincoln. The 1-cent coin had long since transitioned from bronze to copper-plated zinc, a change made 15 years earlier to cut costs. By this point, the new composition was standard, and mint workers prided themselves on their efficiency, striking millions of coins per day to keep pace with demand. But the machinery, while advanced, was not immune to wear and imperfection. Dies were pushed to their limits, often well past their optimal lifespan, to avoid downtime. In that relentless production environment, one particular die flaw escaped detection. It would take years before anyone noticed. At the time, no alarms were raised. The coins were boxed, shipped, and poured into circulation, indistinguishable to the naked eye from the countless other pennies minted that year. They jingled in pockets, were fed into vending machines, or disappeared into jars. Yet among them, a small number carried a subtle imperfection, one that would eventually spark excitement among collectors and shine an unexpected spotlight on an otherwise ordinary year. One rainy afternoon, a coin enthusiast named Michael Reynolds stopped at a small estate sale on the outskirts of his hometown. His love for coins wasn't about getting rich. It was about the hunt, the joy of finding something overlooked by others. He often searched through rolls of pennies late into the night, his loupe pressed to his eye, savoring the thrill of discovery. That day, he spotted an old cigar box full of loose change marked for just a few dollars. He bought it without hesitation and brought it home, eager to examine its contents. Hours later, as he sorted the coins under his magnifying lamp, he noticed a 1997 D penny that seemed off. At first glance, it looked like any other coin. The copper plating gleamed faintly under the light, and Lincoln's profile stared back at him with stoic familiarity. But as he tilted it, the date caught his eye. Something about the 7 seemed strange. He brought it closer, rotating it slightly, and felt his breath hitch. The 7 appeared doubled, with a faint but distinct shadow underneath that he froze, his mind racing. It wasn't damage. There was no sign of gouging or scraping. The doubling was too precise, too clean, as though the die itself had struck twice ever so slightly out of alignment. He checked the rest of the coin and noticed additional faint doubling along the word Liberty and even parts of Lincoln's jacket. The more he looked, the more convinced he became that this was no ordinary strike. Michael spent the next few days scouring reference books and online forums. At first, he found nothing specific to a 1997 deep double die. Most collectors focused on earlier, more famous double dies from 1955, 1969, or even the 1983 reverse. But there were hints, occasional whispers of oddities from the late 90s, unconfirmed reports of minor double dies slipping through. Could he have stumbled on something yet to be cataloged? He submitted his coin to a professional grading service, fingers crossed and heart hammering as he mailed it off. Weeks later, the envelope arrived with the grader's verdict. It confirmed his suspicions, double die obverse, verified and encapsulated. The notation alone made him smile with vindication. But what really intrigued him was the question that came next. How many of these existed, and what were they worth? At first, he saw modest offers. A few collectors offered him $20, then $50. He declined, choosing instead to hold and wait. Over time, as more examples trickled into the market and awareness grew, prices began to climb. The coin started appearing in online auctions, sometimes fetching several $100s in high grades. Then, unexpectedly, demand surged as a numismatic publication featured a short article about modern doubled dies to watch, with a photo of a 1997 D showcasing the doubled 7 in the date. Suddenly, everyone wanted one, and prices spiked. The value did not rise in a straight line. Like many coins, it fluctuated with market whims. Some months saw bidding wars pushing prices close to $1,000 for pristine, uncirculated specimens. Other times, enthusiasm cooled and prices dipped. But through it all, the rarity of high-grade examples kept interest alive. Collectors began combing through rolls of 1997 D pennies from banks, hoping to strike gold, or copper, in this case. What truly fascinated collectors was the coin's understated nature. Unlike more dramatic errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, or missing letters, the 1997 D double die was subtle, requiring careful inspection. Its quiet elegance and relative scarcity made it a sleeper hit, a modern error that rewarded patience and sharp eyes. And yet, there was more to the story than even Michael initially realized. Months after his discovery, he acquired another roll of 1997 D pennies at a local flea market. As he worked through them, he spotted yet another double die, but this one had an additional quirk. Along with the familiar double date and lettering, this specimen also showed a die crack extending from Lincoln's shoulder toward the rim. The crack was faint but unmistakable, creating an entirely new variety that no one had reported yet. He sent this second coin in for grading, and once again it was verified, an early die state with both doubling and a prominent die crack, making it even more unique. The graders noted that such a combination was exceedingly rare, as most dies were retired before accumulating multiple flaws. This revelation sent shockwaves through his collecting circle. Collectors speculated that there might be more varieties of the 1997 D error still waiting to be discovered. The story of the 1997 D penny continued to unfold unpredictably. Even after years of searching, high-grade examples remained elusive. The Denver Mint had produced billions of pennies that year, but only a fraction bore the double die, and fewer still survived in uncirculated condition. For Michael, the hunt became about more than money. It was about the thrill of bringing to light a chapter of minting history that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. Today, the 1997 D double die penny occupies a special place in modern numismatics. It's a reminder that even in an era of automated minting and quality control, imperfections still slip through, imperfections that can transform an ordinary cent into a sought-after prize. And while its value continues to fluctuate, inching upward as collectors appreciate its story and rarity, one thing remains certain. The coin's quiet imperfection has etched itself into the lore of American coin collecting, ensuring its place as a small but significant treasure waiting to be discovered again and again. In 1984, the familiar Lincoln 1-cent penny quietly rolled off presses at the Philadelphia Mint. Millions of these copper-plated zinc coins were struck that year, each bearing Abraham Lincoln's enduring profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But 1984 was a year of subtle transition. Having already shifted from bronze to copper-coated zinc in 1982 to save on rising metal costs, the Mint had adapted its equipment to a slightly different planchet, a change that required precision adjustments to prevent striking issues. It was within this complex environment that something remarkable and unintended occurred, something not immediately obvious, yet destined to capture the imagination of collectors decades later. The error went unnoticed at first, buried in the tide of ordinary coins entering circulation. Routine mint operations in 1984 were fast-paced, with countless dies striking planchets around the clock. At the time, there was no hint that an anomaly among these pennies would someday redefine how enthusiasts viewed a single year's issue. Yet, as collectors would later discover, The combination of hurried production and where on-die surfaces left behind a subtle yet striking clue, hiding in plain sight, waiting for an observant eye to catch IT. IT wasn't until years later, at a quiet coin show in Midwest, that a sharp-eyed collector named Ray Hastings happened to pause at a dealer's table, leafing through a well-worn roll of 1984 pennies priced at face value. Ray, a lifelong collector with a penchant for checking the tiniest details, immediately noticed something unusual. The coin seemed normal enough at first glance. Copper tone, standard diameter, ordinary reverse. But when he tilted it in the light, his trained eyes caught something odd in Lincoln's profile. There appeared to be an extra outline along his earlobe, a faint but unmistakable doubling of detail. At first he thought it was damage, but under his loop the contours were crisp and deliberate, not the result of wear. His pulse quickened. It was an odd sensation, a mix of disbelief and hope. He bought the roll on the spot, hands trembling slightly as he counted his change. That night, under better magnification, Ray confirmed what he suspected. His coin showed what appeared to be a doubled die obverse, a phenomenon where the hub impresses a doubled image into the die itself, which is then transferred to every coin struck by that die. Ray's find sparked a quiet but intense investigation. Word spread cautiously among close-knit circles of collectors and numismatists. Early reports of similar specimens trickled in from other parts of the country. Slowly, the error became more widely recognized, and it was soon designated by experts as the 1984 doubled die penny. The doubling was most evident in Lincoln's earlobe, but could sometimes be faintly traced to other parts of his profile as well. The news added another chapter to the fascinating history of doubled die cents, which had already captivated collectors thanks to earlier examples like the legendary 1955 issue. First, prices were modest. A few dollars here, a few dozen there. But as more collectors became aware of the rarity and distinctiveness of the 1984 era, demand grew. Coin magazines featured it in articles, calling it a modern sleeper that had escaped widespread notice for years. By the early 2000s, certified examples in high grades began appearing at auctions, each sale fueling more interest. Ray watched with quiet pride as the error he had stumbled upon slowly climbed in value. The roller coaster of its worth only added to the allure, spikes and dips that left collectors guessing how high it could ultimately go. What kept the story alive was the coin's unpredictability. While most examples showed a fairly bold doubling, others were fainter, leaving collectors to debate which specimens deserved the highest premiums. Mint state examples were elusive, with many of the discovered coins showing the inevitable nicks and wear of circulation. The chase for pristine examples pushed values even higher, turning a common-looking cent into a coveted trophy. As Ray and others tracked prices, whispers began of four-figure sales for the finest pieces, adding an element of mystery and competition to every new discovery. Examining the coin closely revealed how the error had escaped notice for so long. The doubled earlobe was subtle enough to blend in under casual inspection, but sharp enough to stand out under magnification. Unlike dramatic errors that leap out at you, this one was understated, requiring patience and knowledge to appreciate. That contrast between its humble appearance and growing value fascinated collectors even more. And yet, there was still a twist waiting to emerge, one that would deepen the intrigue. Years after his initial discovery, Ray stumbled upon another roll of 1984 cents and, almost out of habit, began checking them one by one. To his astonishment, one coin bore not just the well-known doubled earlobe, but also a faint but distinct die crack across the reverse. The error wasn't listed in any reference book at the time, making his find even more tantalizing. Here was evidence that the same flawed die that produced the doubled obverse might have been paired with a reverse die already showing signs of stress. This revelation sparked debate within the community. How many varieties of the 1984 error were out there, waiting to be discovered? Could the reverse die crack, combined with the doubled obverse, command an even greater premium? The questions kept collectors on edge, fueling further searches through rolls and bags of otherwise unremarkable pennies. Each new discovery added another layer of depth to an already fascinating story. The 1984 double die penny became more than just another error coin. It became a symbol of persistence, of the thrill of uncovering something hidden in plain sight. Today, its value continues to evolve, influenced by the whims of the market and the scarcity of high-grade examples. For collectors like Ray, the coin's worth is measured not just in dollars, but in the rush of discovery, the sense that even among billions of ordinary pennies, one might hold a secret worth thousands. And as the auctioneer's gavel falls on yet another record-setting sale, the numbers speak volumes. Examples of the 1984 double-die penny have been known to fetch anywhere from several $100s in circulated condition to several $1,000s in near-mint rates. For the sharp-eyed collector, it remains a reminder that even the most common coins can hide extraordinary stories, waiting for someone with the patience and passion to uncover them.